Boom. GM, what's up, fam? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Avatar. I'm your host, Crafter, and with me today, we got the one and only Shakesbeer. What's up, dude? How you doing? Oh shoot, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay.
I always forget. Okay, you're good. What's up?
Yeah. Good. Hey. Glad to be back on. And it's really cool that we have a social hub to hang out at the same time in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
dude.
there's a lot to talk about since last time we did a chat here.
Seriously, like I feel like a lot has happened. So, for those of you that don't know, you could go back and watch the previous episode. I have that up on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Crafter or Behind the Avatar. You'll find it. You'll find me, and then you can find it. But yeah, I think we do have a lot to talk about, and um, this social hub itself is available. I was like, what the hell am I trying to say? This social hub is available for you guys to plan too. So if you want to come check it out, just search Club, CLUB space Z in the draft gallery. And you can come hang out with us if you want. We can have a live audience, but unfortunately, you won't be able to hear unless you are on Twitch as well. So stay on Twitch when you do that. But yeah, come vibe with us. But yeah, let's dive on in. For those of you that don't know, that are maybe catching the recording, or because I feel like everyone that's here on Twitch right now definitely knows who you are, Shakesbeer. But and by the way, what up, chat? What up, Poddle? Waypax, how we doing? But yeah, you want to give everyone just a quick little rundown of who Shakesbeer is?
Sure.
Just
Thanks.
like
And yeah, once
your
again.
intro, just a small little one.
Yeah, thanks again for inviting me back for a chat. And and yeah, I go by the name online Shakespeare. My name's Jerry though. And I've been working with the Sandbox now for over 2 years in the Creator Fund. Um, and before that, I have a fairly diverse background in terms of just areas of expertise and practice, shall we say. But I like for decades now, you can say I've been in computer graphics and production art too. And so like when the Creator Fund thing came up, as watching the stream, like a lot of us started, and Joseph said something like, "Hey, we need creators. If you have any background at all, or just the drive, go for it." And so that's what inspired that. Really kind of like for myself, I think like a lot of people, we all like COVID really made us like shift a lot of things that were going in our lives. And Sandbox came around just at that time too. And so for myself, I was looking for things to diversify in. And this is when I found the Sandbox, and things kind of subsequently led to, like I mentioned, the Creator Fund, and really just snowballed so fast that this has basically became my profession now. Like, and you can
Right.
say that my last job before this one is technically an inventor, but because of just like how fun and lucrative this is all was just so quickly, and when you look at the potential of where it goes, it's so big. And so that's kind of where, that momentum just swept me into it. And so I've been, besides just the Creator Fund, now I work with many different studios. Some of them partnered, some of them independent. Um, do some different consulting on Web3 strategies for different entities, as well as cryptocurrency strategy for different entities too, including like humanitarian stuff and things like this. And got really neck deep in crypto. So I mean that's kind of like the quick synopsis of the Sandbox kind of
Hell yeah.
intro.
No,
And so, but
that,
I was saying that time I've seen quite a bit change in the Sandbox, like specifically, So, but all
totally.
great stuff, all very encouraging.
Yeah. What like when did you first start like building in the Sandbox? Like what year was that?
Okay, so that would have probably been I guess now maybe like 2020, end of 2020, I guess maybe.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, that would be, yeah, when I started as well. Just kind of
yeah,
dabbling with it.
something like that. And I actually owned land a little bit before that happened. So like it was like I'd have to look back, but I was a landowner well before I started doing creation in the space. Um, for me, I actually found the sandbox because while contemplating cryptocurrency stuff, like I figured someone was doing virtual real estate. Like, unless someone has to be doing this concept already, right? And so then I found Decentraland first, and was like, oh, damn, this stuff is already really expensive. And so I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be someone who's not quite as far along and is cheaper right now, but still has a good idea. And so then that's when I found Sandbox, and I saw that, and I saw that the lands were fairly cheap, and at the time, a lot of stuff was still pretty new. I mean, even like MetaMask wasn't like that old yet. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was very, very early stuff. And so
That was the like wild west days, like where everything was crazy, and you really felt like it was like ancient technology that you were dealing with, and it's like this needs to get easier because it is not easy to figure out right now for an average user. I just
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I just look back at those days. Yeah, and that's did you and I feel like if you said this, sorry, I was also in the middle of banning somebody on Twitch. Um, but did you end up? So you said you saw that the sandbox land was um, undervalued or cheap at the time compared to like Decentraland. Did
Yeah.
you end up buying a bunch of land at that time, or what was
Not
your
a
move
bunch.
then?
I should have.
Yeah,
Like,
tell me about it. I don't want. I kick myself every goddamn day. I'm like, God. I remember talking to my wife about it and being like we could buy a bunch of metaverse land and basically be like act like it's real estate and hold on to it and sell it whenever people want to put something next to something else that we bought it next to, and like really like pay attention to like the location and all this. And I was like going down this rabbit hole of like how it was like such a good idea, and I was talking to her about it, and she's like, that's interesting. And I was like, God damn it, she doesn't understand what I'm talking about. And I was like I was like, it makes so much sense to me. And I was like, but I can't really like figure out a really good way like to justify it in my head at that time. I was just like, because I didn't know that the value was gonna go up as much as it did.
yeah.
Same with like fucking bored apes and shit like that. Like I just watched it all happen, and I was like, what? What did I just miss out on? I should have bought a lottery ticket and I didn't. And like it's just like you don't expect it until it happens, and then you're like, oh damn, that would have been smart. But it's all good.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But it's cool to even just be experiencing it from well, I wouldn't say the sidelines because we're definitely obviously both participating, but yeah. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, for myself at the time, I think I bought two at that time, two lands, and I kind of forget the timeline of it now, but it was like I wasn't necessarily keeping on it like all the time. Like, so I wasn't watching it like super acutely. And it wasn't until I forgot when it was, but I was just like, oh, I think I'll check my land now or check how this thing's doing. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, and I'm like, oh my god, like these things, these NFTs are worth a crap ton of money now. And because like real estate, I already kind of thought like location is going to be key.
mhm.
And so like when I saw that, oh yeah, there's these official sandbox lands, like I looked for places like that were next to it and things like this.
Yeah,
Um,
that was like my
and
idea. I
yeah,
was like, they're obviously like showing you where the hot spots are gonna be, so get land near
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and then subsequently, like, because then once I was in it a little bit more consistently, I was able to get in on the Smurfs land sale. and so that's when I had acquired another one, and
Mm-hmm.
even then that was a premium land then, and it cost that I got, and that costed me like a whopping $280 or something like that. um, just sand, whatever sand was at that price, it was under $300 for a premium. Um, and even then, just kind of like how the last land grabs were, like if you're getting a premium land, you had a lot more leeway with what you're getting. Like how it goes. Usually the lower end lands they just poof.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you try to get a premium, you usually can get it
I
free.
I wish I would have like realized that at the time because I tried a lot of land sales and didn't get them, and I was like, and then I got frustrated and I was like, God damn it, I'm just gonna just wait until I actually feel like I have enough to like just buy location wise, and I was like, I'll just buy it later after and I stopped trying. But I feel like I should just keep on trying because I mean, what does it hurt? I mean, it instantly goes from being like how much is it, like 1,000 or something for the regular lands,
Yeah,
like
2011.
1,011. So right around I always think of sand and USD as the same right now, until until things prove otherwise. So I always think of land as, or sand as, at least $1. So like $1,000 for a land, and then it instantly, the floor for a land is, I haven't looked lately, but it seems like it was hovering right around 1 ETH for a while.
Yeah,
So that's not a
yeah.
huge
It's still
a huge like increase, but it will change in the future. So
well,
it's
yeah, no, and it also depends on the location and plot because like how um some of those plots that are being sold like you are kind of relatively because there's nowhere that's out in nowhere in the sandbox, but they're not necessarily next to key IPs. Let's put it that way. That
mm-hmm,
on that end, and so if you're not like an island unto yourself, away from Atari, away from Care Bears, away from whatever, then your land isn't that floor. And so that's kind
right,
of one of the things that I explain to people. Like my lands aren't that floor. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm, right,
And
right, right, and
and then there's other misconceptions too. Like it's not all about necessarily being next to a big IP. Like let's say if you're an island onto yourself, but you're on the corner of the map, that's a
mm-hmm,
great spot. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, right, yeah,
So yeah, things like that really play in, and there's more and more entities they're applying classic real estate algorithms to a lot of this. So as that happens, the price is gonna go up, and actually, really, the price is gonna go up once it's demonstrated that we're able to make money off of this as
uh-huh,
landowners from the experiences.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
yeah, poof.
yep, definitely. Like yeah, once it's proven, that's when you'll see land prices go crazy. um and that'll be exciting.
Hmm.
I'm definitely I've definitely been scoping out some areas and just kind of watching the prices. One area in particular, just because it seems like to me that everything that the sandbox is doing right now is geared towards Snoop Dogg stuff. So the Snoop Dogg area, like I feel like there's obviously going to be some big concert or something that goes on that'll draw a lot of people. So people will want to be
Yeah.
having other experiences near there, so that people can easily find them as well. So like land around there is what I've been like kind of scoping out for the first flipping opportunity. But those I mean,
Yeah.
but people get it. Those prices aren't cheap there, so it's still like it's already happening. So it's cool to see, it's cool to be a part of. It's weird. It's hard to like wrap your head around like that this is happening already, because like I
It is.
I remember like not that long ago, um rewatching Ready Player One and just being like,
Mhm.
"Duh, that's so cool!" Like, I can't wait until that becomes a thing, and then now it's fucking right around the corner. Like, you can feel it coming. I don't know. I don't know how long it'll take to get to that level of metaversy, but
It is.
like it's obviously like working its way towards that. So, no, hopefully not. Hopefully not exactly like how the movie
Yeah,
portrays
not the
it, but
dystopian part, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Let's.
yeah,
I can
yeah.
do without that, but I do want to experience like the metaverse part of how everything um just played. Like it just seemed like such a great open world concept. Like
Well,
just
I'm sure that that will probably happen, and we probably haven't seen the game that's doing that yet. But this is one of the things that I liked about the sandbox was that it took a very pragmatic approach to this blockchain integration of virtual worlds and user generated content. Um, and voxels are a great fit because you have a relatively controlled scenario versus, say, just regular polygons. You know what I mean, when you create like in just Unity or Unreal or something like that.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so in that sense the stability should be there, and I do think that it's something like, you know, decentraland I think will maybe turn into something more like that, but not quite, just because of how fairly restricted the lands are right now. But over time it will probably evolve to that, and that was one of the things that I saw with decentraland, that initial research, was that they have a great idea, and they have and but the problem is the hardware needs to catch up to the idea with Decentraland. Like there's not enough people who can really experience that the way
Right.
it should be.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and Sandbox doesn't have that issue really.
which is awesome. I thought about that the other
Mhm.
day. I remember we did like a metaverse treasure hunt or something back in the day with Metaskin stuff, and I remember we did it in Decentraland because Sandbox wasn't even at a point where you could do stuff like in a gallery, um, and I wanted to do it all like this. So like now we could actually do something like that in um, in the Sandbox, which is dope. We should do that. But the reason I was saying that is why I don't know. I got distracted by the idea of doing another one. Um, oh yeah, because people a lot of people that participated had issues running it on their computer, and sometimes I forget how good of a laptop I have. So
Mhm.
so like yeah, like it's cool to see that a lot more people are able to run sandbox stuff on theirs and not have any issues. It
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and I think this new update's going to help to resolve even more of those issues for some people.
That's cool
Um, yeah.
because I definitely
So
know that people are still experiencing that, but
yeah, and I know that and there's this new Vox edit that just came out too yesterday, which I'm hearing is running a lot lighter on people's computers, which is also good. Not that it was the most intensive software to begin with, but it could sometimes depending on the what you're working on. So I haven't had a chance to put it through the ringer yet with, like, you know, a 300 plus node monster yet, but I'm definitely gonna try that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
that's cool. That just came out recently. I haven't opened box edit in probably a
yeah, it just
week.
came out. I think it was yesterday.
Okay, okay, so
Was yesterday before? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. That's right. Yeah, because I was in the middle of something, and just switched over. But yeah, it's actually very convenient. They have multiple node selection now at once.
ooh,
I mean, yeah,
okay.
and you can literally just drag and click and drag. You just
Oh
select
hell
however
yeah!
things in the viewport.
I
And
need to
there's
get in
different
there and mess
modes.
around.
Yeah, it looks a lot nicer too. Like the interface has been refined. You know what I mean?
Nice,
So
good.
um,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. And I've been plugging away so far, and yeah, so far so good. Does it corrupt file? I just saw Doran's question. So
Ah,
far, I haven't having any issues with corrupted files yet. And I've been having to do some lot of crunch time stuff lately, so well, I definitely noticed that.
that's good. That's good.
Oh,
And yeah, shout out chat. I see you guys. If I read all your guys' comments, I get distracted and then I don't listen. So I'm sorry if I don't respond or anything. I try to keep up every once in a while and look back. But thank you guys for being here. It's always awesome. And if you do have questions, drop them in and I'll try and see them. And if I don't see them, don't feel bad. You can always drop the question again. It's not going to bother me. Um, Obviously, don't spam, but every once in a while, I'll peek over, and if I see a question mark, I usually I usually read it to make sure that it's not just a question for somebody in the chat. But yeah, it's been cool to see all the different developments that they've been rolling out. So I definitely want to dive into the new Vox Edit one. I saw Panda Pops put out a bunch of tutorials today or yesterday or something, and I was like, I wonder if something happened with Vox Edit, or why she just all of a sudden pumped out a bunch of short little tutorials. And then I watched one, and it was that you can use tab to grab the color from any block instead of having to like click over on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so they definitely updated something, so that's cool. um
Yeah.
they're definitely working on stuff. That's you can't say that they're not doing that. Obviously, I feel like people have been waiting and waiting and waiting and thinking that like the actual like playable like open world, well, not open world, but like where anyone can do anything on their land has been coming for a long time. But we're definitely making progress, so that's cool. um
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
it's not an I feel like it's definitely not an easy thing to figure out. But I also have no idea. You probably have more of an idea than than me about what they're dealing with and what they're trying to make happen.
Well, I mean, everything that I've heard so far is it's all in line with Arthur's tweet just before the new year. So it does seem like that things are moving forward
Hmm.
to be more open by the end of this year. So,
Yeah.
and I think the word got out, already that the creator fund is kind of like shifting, I guess you can call it, and in preparation for this. So there's the as it's been standing for the past, I guess it's been 4 years. I guess that it's pretty much ending next month, and then there's going to be like a whole other set of opportunities, I guess you could say, for a lot of the existing creator fund artists.
Okay, cool.
And one of those is going to be the planned release of like basically what they told us was a 30,000 items that have been created by all the different artists over the years.
Oh,
Um, yeah.
that's awesome.
So yeah, it's not all just going to go at once. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a strategy behind the drops for a little bit here, and then that includes like how that will be handled as it goes over to Polygon. Um,
Mm.
so so it sounds like there's still going to be like some handfuls of drops. Like there's still probably going to be a fair amount of items dropped in the market for a little bit, but at the same time, like that migration there, the attitude is to try to save the best for Polygon. I guess you can kind of say in a certain way. Um,
That would make sense.
yeah. Um, and then after the Care Bears mint, it's very encouraging because that seemed to go without a hitch. And
Right, right. It
those
didn't.
damn Care Bears, man, they're fun to jump around with.
Seriously, I know. I still feel like I should go pick one up. I always see people run around as one, and I'm like, I should go get one. Those look fun.
It's oddly satisfying. It is.
Yeah.
I I figured it was just good to get in on it because it's all these items right now are going to be called legacy items. I
Yeah.
mean, all these things in the
Right.
beginning, and this is the first drop from that major IP as an avatar, and so I got only a couple of them. I know that the max was like I forgot how many, it was like 10 or something like that. But but yeah, and I tried it out and just to kind of see what it's like with the small, mammal human template. And yeah, it's oddly satisfying running around with the smaller character.
I
Um,
imagine it
uh,
would be fun. It's just it's just a change of pace, and it feels a little bit different. And the like you are like shorter, right? So like you could go
yeah.
through a smaller space than a regular avatar could.
As far as I know, like last I heard was the hitbox is still the medium hitbox though.
Oh, so you will
Um,
like hit your head if you're running through, but it won't
although
it
now
won't look
with
like you're hitting it.
Yeah, although now with eight we can go under one block. So
I was gonna say that
um,
is cool. I
yeah,
figured that out the other day when I was messing around in here. I was like, wait, I can
Yeah,
crawl under this thing.
you can
Nice.
crawl under now. Yeah. Yeah, which causes some issues with older assets
Yeah.
that you were trying to make as a barrier. Now it's like not so
It's
much. But but yeah, no, that is, and that's a small annoyance, you know, compared to all the really cool stuff that's happened in eight. I mean, the fact that we're hanging out in a social hub right now. I mean, this is the
right.
stuff that we were dreaming of in Alpha Two.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
like you know,
I remember just
uh,
like, yeah, like saying like, oh, I can't wait until I can host the podcast from the metaverse, and look at us now. Like, obviously this isn't on my land or anything, but like it's very close to being that way. Like it basically is. Like, I don't
yeah.
know what's like, so that's very encouraging as far as like taking steps towards opening it up so that anyone could host anything on their land, because we're basically already doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I think it seems like it's not as stable as like how the alphas have been. Um, I feel like I remember when Fred and Ferd and Roxy did that one thing, whatever they called it. um, I showed up and was trying to do it for a little bit, but I kept mine kept crashing and kicking me out, and
Uh,
I feel like there was only like, I don't know, like 20, 30. I don't know how many people were in there, but um, it definitely didn't seem like it should be overloaded, but it was. And I don't know if that was from some of the asset use or logic or what. I don't understand how. I don't really know how what happens. I haven't caused any issues yet, so I just know that I haven't. I'm not overloading it, but
mm.
it obviously seems like it can happen. Yeah, Diamond Dash Awards.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, this is still very unstable. I mean, in a lot of ways, and like and especially with the social
Well, it's supposed to be
part of
nighttime.
it.
It's supposed to be nighttime right now, too. FYI, it's supposed to be
Well, yeah,
dark out.
you have to use the weather modifier. I found that out when I was doing my
Okay.
social hub experiments. Yeah, because when I the global, like, think of the global setting thing as almost worthless in
Okay.
social.
Okay.
Um, you know, and we found out some really cool stuff, because like how I mentioned that like on stream, where the idea that we can't do player versus player right now isn't entirely accurate. It's not
Uh huh.
stable. It's you're gonna have to finagle and kind of you know, just ghetto rig some stuff. But we did find out that number one, we can cause other players to die.
Okay.
Um, and we found a way to create collisions between other players.
Like,
Um,
so you could do like bumper cars.
you could do like bumper cars, yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, and now, is this going to be stable into the next versions? Maybe not. Now
Right.
that's the gamble that you run. And there's some quirks, like, because for instance, like, we felt like when you have a multiplayer experience and you get a kill message to work, what can happen sometimes is that, okay, if you, like how all of us are in here right now, the last person who enters would get teleported back to the original start point if any one of us dies. So the so basically, like the player who, let's say, walks over a bomb or something, right?
Uh
If
huh.
they've already been in the experience and, like, say, three people jumped in after, that third person is going to get teleported no matter where they're at back to the spawn port, while the player that ran over the explosive part will just blink red, and then they won't go anywhere.
Okay. What
Uh,
what can you use that for? Give me an example of like what you would use that in a game.
well, like how I was mentioning, like the fact that you know that this player character died, means you can track it one way or
Uh
another.
huh.
And if you track that, then that means you can keep a scoreboard. So there's, and
Mm.
like how, for
For
instance, one of the,
each player.
yeah, hmm
That's
and,
cool.
yeah, and because like one of the first experiments that I did with that was I have an exploding barrel asset that I had made for the creator fund, and we're playing with that, setting that off to kill characters, and so it did, and I made it have a radius too, and we noticed that as long as other player characters were in that radius when it went off, yes, it would hit everyone.
Mm.
Um,
That's cool.
and Yeah, and it works stably for like one or two deaths, but then after like the third one, like that's like what happened. Um,
Yeah.
and then and we did another experiment. And initially it was Wicked. You two and I were in the social hub, and well, I had put myself in one of the hamster balls, and it's just basically a big hollow sphere, and it was the
Mm-hmm.
one that I was showing where you can kind of get lift and just start flying.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yep. I saw that one.
that's what I was going to just do and see what happened in a social experience, which it does do that. You can fly doing the same technique in that. But one of the things that we noticed was that I was able to come in contact with Wicked's player character, and Wicked was able to push my character in the ball. Um, and
Oh.
so yeah, and so now there's another. I'm not done with the experiment, but I was just going to revisit it because it's not like super high priority. But um, the we're trying to get it to where I can trigger that ball to be spawned around every character that comes into this social experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the spawner, once again, is one of those things that are kind of quirky still
Right.
in this version. So sometimes it's not necessarily about knowing the logic that you need. It's like, will the logic actually perform the way it's supposed to in the game maker?
Uh-huh.
That's the question.
That is the question.
So
That's
yeah.
that's all that's I feel like that I've learned that's always the question. Is will it
Yeah.
perform like it's supposed to? Or how it is performing when when you're just testing it.
Hmm.
Um
Hmm. Yeah.
that ball scenario where you can like run into each other well, when you're in the
Mm.
balls, that could lead to some fun games. Um
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Um what whenever you've been messing around, is there anything that you have then gone on to like use in something that like a game or something that you're working on? I guess I don't know all that you've been working on right now. Is there anything that you that you've been focused on right now? It sounds like a lot of maybe creator fun stuff is keeping you
um,
busy.
the career funds always is in the background always, and then because of these, the advancement in the space, there's a lot more businesses and individuals who are now stepping up their investment in the space,
Mm,
and stepping up their production times. So there's a lot of people who still need assets. They still need logic consultation,
mm-hmm.
and and honestly, like, and this isn't like I'm not talking crap on anyone in particular or anything, but I'm just saying like there is a difference between like, hey, I downloaded Vox Edit and I'm messing with it and I made this cool. Okay, now the thing might look cool, but that's different from being put in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you can make like really good sculptures, but they have to be done a certain way if they're not, so they won't break inside the game maker. And there's certain ways you want to create your files, certain naming conventions, even sometimes. And because I've been in the creator fund for so long, this has been key. And so I know a lot of, and just second nature,
Right.
some of these that you just have to get done. And so this is where, there's different studios, different individuals who recognize this and have been approaching me, and I've been working with them on this
Yeah.
stuff. Um, and and then when it comes to the game maker logic, we're all still learning eight, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so in that sense, this is where with game maker in particular, I kind of stopped a lot of the games I was working on to understand eight a little bit more, and pretty quickly I found that it's worth it to just remake whatever it is, like whatever game it is, it's worth remaking in eight.
Yeah,
um
that was the advice you gave me when I when I talked to you about the social hub, because I had been building this in 7, and I was I was like, I don't, well, one, I didn't really even have any logic set up yet. So
okay.
I was like it probably won't break when I move it over
Yeah.
anyways, but I just remember asking you that and you're like, yeah, just bring it over and rebuild it if you have to because it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that's good advice. Obviously, like, I don't know if it's something that you spent a lot of time on and it has a lot of like complicated logic and you want to be like using it right now for some reason, maybe don't bring that over yet. But but I don't know, I think that was good advice, and I think it's fine to to bring the stuff over and fix it if you have to, because it's definitely worth it in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's look at a project, let's say like the Pickaxe Masters.
Hmm.
I mean, they're getting ready to migrate because they clearly see the advantages, and that's like crazy heavy logic.
Hmm. I know.
And and so in that sense, anyone who's worried about their logic, like just remember Pickaxe Masters. Like
Yes.
it's probably not that bad.
Yeah,
So,
that's so true.
um, but it will break randomly messages and stuff like that, because like now on the games that I'm making, just like on the personal, right, like for my own personal projects and endeavors, um okay, like number one, I'm remaking my Atari Game Jam top 10 placement tank
Okay.
game
Yeah, yeah.
in eight. Yeah, and I'm doing that from the ground up because like I can see where it's just worth it.
Hmm.
That Atari Game Jam game was fairly logic heavy. It was,
I was gonna
but at the
say, I
same
feel like,
time,
yeah, I feel like yours was
yeah,
pretty legit.
it was but at the same time it's relatively linear. So in that sense, it's not necessarily the most like the most like it's not the Pickaxe Masters. And
Yeah.
but at the same time, there's a lot of detectors, there's a lot of tags, there's a lot of these different kind of things, and I'm seeing like how an eight, it's already going to run way better because I don't have to have, like, what was it, I want to say something like 20 tiles on each projectile. Like, so each shot from the player character had like 20 different detectors on them. And those were all faces,
Uh-huh.
and with these things. And so just having that as the donuts is going to save a lot on the efficiency, let alone the rest of the hit detectors and triggers out there. And then of course the effects, like like when I saw the effects, like having the both the enemy shots and my player character shots having these light trails that I didn't have to kind of use from just the voxels. I mean, it was just
Uh-huh.
so many little things. There'll be such a better game.
That's I'm
I'll
like
probably
thinking
call
about your
something
game
different.
now, and like there is, yeah, all kinds of like things where it's like, oh, that would be really cool, like the, like you said, like the light trail and stuff. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and
definitely worth
and
it.
yeah, and then there's the explosion effect too, because like how it's supposed to be kind of like a battlefield. So like that was even one of the reasons why I kind of left some of the detectors that exploded, because it kind of came off as just like random explosions.
Mm-hmm.
um, and but that can be put in. But and then one of the other games that I've been working on is a racing game, and I started doing this in seven, and I was testing out a different type of propulsion system using platforms, and it worked because it's meant to be like a zany kind of fun acceleration kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
um and but then once eight came out and saw the slide function and swim and slide, okay, because at one point I was thinking about doing turning into a swim thing, but then how I saw slide works, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is way better. So
Slide is
so
dope.
again, yeah, in terms of what, because mine was like a jet ski kind of
Oh yeah, yeah,
game that I was playing.
that'd be legit.
um and so yeah, that's one in the works here, and I learned a lot from the social experience to kind of let me know like what to do now in this other one, which is going to be a single player experience.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and we saw how even just in the social, right? Like there's some basic hazards. Like instead of using the exploding barrels, I'm just using pitfalls to the bottom of the map. That works a lot more consistently in terms of killing your characters. Um,
sure,
and
just
and
send them to
does
hell.
Yeah. But even just sliding around a track, it's like it's amazing. It's oddly fun. I mean, that's what even the audience is saying. Like, yeah, it's like this is oddly fun, just going around in circles. And now I
Totally.
just updated it
That makes
with
sense.
with the Blaze Games autos. So now you can slide around as the car too and stuff like that. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Um, is that playable in the drafts gallery?
Huh?
Or yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the name of it so people can go find it?
That's the Shakespeare's Smoker Lounge and Slides.
Oh, okay, yeah, I saw it. It was, is it on like the first or second page, I think.
it's probably pretty close up there, yeah. Because I updated it like early this morning. It was the
Okay.
last one before my connection or my computer died and my connection went weird and everything happened.
I was gonna say,
So,
so hopefully you don't jinx it, but you've been coming through great right now. So
yeah, so far so good. Yeah, I've been watching everything and it's like, yeah, all right, good. This is a good sign. Oh, but yeah, so like it definitely affected the what I'm doing with the games. Yes, absolutely, and significantly so. Um, yeah, because I definitely wanted like the Atari one I was mentioning. I wanted to go back and revamp it a little bit, straighten up. But then once eight came out, it was like, yeah, no, just start from the beginning. Even the physics, like dragging items, because that's kind of a crucial part in that game is being able to okay, because like the to give you an idea of how the tank game was made. Okay, you have the tank obviously that's shooting the way it looks, but now inside that tank is an invisible asset. It's like a box. It's a big box that houses the avatar in there, and then the avatar has to push against the sides to make it move left and right.
okay,
And then it
yep,
has tracks on the or guides on either side, so and up on top, so it can't flip up and it can't flip over. So
okay,
that tank has to stay, lined up. And so that dragging of that box is way more fluid in this version. The last version, as we saw, it kind of killed like a lot of momentum. Like soccer was like just not going to happen anymore in seven. But now in eight, it can happen as long as you have the colliders on the ball right, which is a whole other subject. That I'm probably gonna get some more specifics on that, like what makes a good rolling ball in eight versus anything else.
mm,
So I've done some tests, and like how you can tell when if your hitboxes are square, it's like moving a boulder across the ground. But if you have a bunch of different collisions, like that hamster ball that I was talking about, it
yep,
will roll very very natural. So the key seems to be having incremental collision boxes as opposed to like one big one.
uh huh. I mean, I guess I don't know exactly why that makes sense, but it seems like lot like physic wise, like it would make sense that if there was more like gradual changes, it would be smoother. Um, right?
Yeah, because it's like the floor has no texture, right? And that was one of the things I noticed too.
Yeah.
How I noticed is because if there's no texture, then like that, like if it's a square box, it'll just kind of slide upright like this. But because that hamster ball, for instance, has a bunch of angles like this, that when it kind of moves forward, it actually has like another surface to create its own sort of friction to move around
Uh huh.
is what it seems like to me. Like I said, I'm going to do some tests with this eventually on in the social hub, and I'll probably make another ball, and I'm probably actually going to make like I don't know, for lack of a better term, like a star kind of asset that's made up of points to test that theory about these different collision boxes and
Uh huh.
um because yeah, these I'm like how I mentioned, I'm not so much interested in like breaking things for the fun of it. I'm interested in
Yeah.
finding thresholds that are consistent. And so, but to do that, you have to find out what has pushed it past.
Uh
You know what I
huh.
mean?
Yeah.
And when that point is. And so that's kind of where my experimentation angle is. Like I'm looking for what's the most stable, and then once I see something that's stable, then I'm like, okay, now I can make a game out of that. You know,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
so like the slide, for instance, stay super stable.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Although I I wonder with sliding do you think that could have been something that was messing up the um Diamond Ducks dash award thing? Um
Well, I know that.
or have you tested sliding at in other capacities with a lot of people doing stuff?
Well, I know friend Ferd here. We've had some discussions on my chat too, and like the irony of that contest coming out like right when slide gets announced like a week later, and the physics all change on the gliders.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that and yeah, breaking that because that's one of the things. I mean, the I know that the technique a lot of times is called the glider technique, where you're able to kind of parent like a pickable item with something that has collisions like this, and then that could give you lift, or it can, like how in the case of the Diamond Dash, it kind of gives you that forward thrust and a little bit of momentum.
Uh-huh.
Um, but and these are one of those things that it still exists. You can still do this right now, but it just takes fine tuning about how far from everything. But now, like everything I've heard from, I mean, even like Joseph said, that's not going to exist at one point. Like it's just not going to work.
Right.
Um, and
Which that does make sense. It's like
Yeah,
that's obviously something that'll get patched so that that
yeah,
it doesn't do that. But for the time
yeah.
being, it's fucking fun.
Yeah, and we have slide now too, which helps at least for the ground stuff, right? And I know they're gonna be introducing fly as well, so we won't have to do that as much for fly.
Right.
Um, and to me, like, because I have my old Proro Game Jam entry, and that was all glider based. Basically, it was a glider and a launcher based. And so someday I actually wouldn't mind going back and redoing that one once there's a better fly
A
mechanic
better
again.
fly.
Um, yeah, and but because that was kind of cool. And I'll probably be able to do a little better because that's all about like flying and shooting corn into a basket. You know what I mean?
Okay. I was gonna say
And
I'm trying to remember if I played yours or not. I feel like I did, but yeah.
it's been a little while. It's been a little
It has
while.
been a little while for that one.
But yeah, that was the glider technique there, and then I remember like subsequently after that when it's like, oh, let's see if it still works. And I was like, yeah, not the same. But yeah, doing that ground sliding momentum builder was definitely still a thing, and the only problem we ran into is sometimes you go flying off the map. Um, but like how a Diamond Dash, they were able to solve for that with using a bigger track, having a lot of just sort of leeway in where you can go. So like not being on a one by one obviously is going to help with that too. And so like when you're on one by one doing some of these glider tests or these other things, it's like there you go off the map. Although it seems like they've made it more difficult to do that this time because in 7 it was like you can look at things wrong sometimes and there you go off the map. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So
You look at it wrong.
uh, yeah. But yeah, this new version though is definitely reignited a lot of fires. I think that were
Hmm.
there and started some new ones
Yeah, I
and
think it's great
mhm.
for the growth of everything, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it really did spark up part of the economy a little bit here in the sandbox.
Hmm.
So and once again, we're still all just figuring out a lot of the nuances. So it's like once more of those are figured out, there's going to be even cooler games that are made. I'm sure.
I I feel like yeah, like we're just on the like I mean it's still so early in what what is happening inside the new version. So like who knows what's gonna come out in the next even couple months? Because I'm sure some people have been working and not saying anything. So we'll see what people come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And like how like we have the pickaxe masters here in chat, and like how I was mentioning that migration is happening to 8, and I can't wait to see the Misty Mountain
I
in 8
know.
because it's you know and like how once again speaking to that those optimization that happens when you don't have to use actual voxel faces for your logic. I mean, I think this is something where like obviously like the Misty Mountain is like a prime example of where this could potentially increase those frames even higher on that experience, which makes it even more immersive, more cool, everything.
Hmm. Yeah, no, Misty Mountain shout out Pickaxe Master is gonna be dope in point eight. So can't wait. I know it's gonna be a lot of work on your guys' end, but you guys got it. We believe.
Yeah,
We will
definitely.
let everyone know what was the optimization we got from the upgrade. It'll
Oh
definitely
yeah.
be legit. Um
Yeah, and some of the effects. I mean, because now you can actually kind of have a misty area
yes,
because
like it's gonna be
you.
it's definitely has
Yeah.
the ability I believe to suck people into exploring that mountain because everything is just gonna be so much more vibrant and immersive, like you said. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's gonna be awesome. What up, fam? I see a bunch of you guys have found your way into the social hub. If you want to join us and you know how to go to drafts in the game maker for the sandbox, we just go to the draft gallery and search Club Z, CLUB space Z, and that'll be the experience we're hanging out in. And then just follow there is a guide that'll kind of guide you. There's a door that's kind of broken and triggers a stupid asking question that doesn't make any sense, but but if you just stumble your way through all of that, you'll find us in the back. I probably should, for right now, just move the spawn point to in front of the stage or something and not make you guys go through all that. But but thank you for coming and finding us and hanging out. It's awesome to be hosting these shows from the actual metaverse. So and it's cool to see
Yeah,
all you
definitely.
guys up on screen. um um, 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 where were we going? Who knows? Um, I was just thinking though, which is totally off topic, but but something that caught my eye right before we hopped on stream, is have you been paying attention to Dookie Dash,
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
The
board
ape
ape
one.
the board ape thing?
Yeah. Hmm.
It it's
Uh-huh.
crazy to think like what they're doing. And I just saw, so on Twitter I saw, I think I forget what his name is, Mongol or something. It was I just like retweeted it if you guys want to go check it out. But he got the high score, and I'm pretty sure he's just a pretty young like esports gamer or something. And and it's like that's like I can't even wrap my head around how much whatever he is going to unlock with that number one score is gonna go for on secondary. And I wonder if he even realizes that, because it seems like I don't know who he or she is. I guess I don't even know if it's a he or she. Um, but I wonder if they even realize, because feel like the little bit of research I did is that they're just a like a streamer gamer, um, and just bought, like, maybe this is one of their first NFT things. I don't really know though, so don't quote me on that. But but it's crazy like how they're kind of experimenting with this. I would call this a play to earn mechanic. Obviously, it's not the game itself yet, but it's kind of cool how they're making you play a game to unlock other things for a future game.
Yeah, and I think that it demonstrates how you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel to get people to play the game. There just has to be some kind of incentive, and I think that for some people, maybe even like the streamer you're talking about, it's just the fact that it was a competition. Because I know there's a lot of a lot of professional esports players who just will just enter whatever might pay.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and uh, and so I think that could very well be it. And but then like how there's still Pac-Man competitions, there's still Tetris competitions, because those numbers can always be better theoretically. You know what I mean, there's always a way to kind of eke a half a second or a fraction of a second more, one more point, and that's the sport part, and that's kind of where the difference in some games, and we're going to see that a lot in the sandbox, because like how there's going to be some games that are going to be kind of like epic stories, and they're going to probably take maybe hours, but and then there's going to be games that are more quick games, but you're going to play a lot of them, and
Hmm.
you're still going to spend 3 hours. and,
Yeah. Right. Right.
so um, and that's what I think is going to be really fun about the sandbox in particular. And I think that Board Apes is in this with the Dookie Dash is demonstrating how you really don't need that elaborate of a game.
Hmm.
You just make the incentives high enough,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
people will play it.
Yeah.
And and it kind of shows. I mean, because a lot of people do like endless runners. I mean, that's kind of one of those genres. Same thing with like bullet hell games. It's like these types of game these this these different types of games are something that have a high replayability, and then when you add something like a leaderboard onto it, you have this continual participation just on that competitive level.
Yes,
um,
exactly. I definitely have thought a lot about that, and you know that. Um, and for those of you that don't know, me and Shakesbeer have been working together behind the scenes on some things for Metaskins and the game experience that I'm working towards releasing here whenever we get to it. It's not something that I have a lot of time to spend on, but that is something to look forward to. And Shakesbeer, obviously, for those of you that have been paying attention to this podcast, knows what the hell he's doing and is a master at coming up with how to make things work. Um, so it's cool to be working with you on stuff like that too. Um,
yeah, definitely.
and I believe that the multiplayer or not multiplayer, it could just be single player as well, but like short play experience, like games are probably going to be the first thing to really take off, just because it's so easy to just put a leaderboard behind it, and and now you have a way to reward people based off of their performance, and that's addicting. So
Yeah.
I think that's exciting, and there's all kinds of, obviously all kinds of ways to do that. I think like what, for instance, what the Pickaxe Master is doing, like they're obviously going to be leveraging that stuff too. So yeah, it's just the release of point 0.8 is super cool. And obviously it's only up from there, so
Yeah.
it'll just get more and more exciting as newer and newer things get added, or whenever we go to 9. um who knows what that'll be. um
Yeah, it'll
so
probably be a little while. And yeah, little Legion Org. Yeah, I'm kind of seeing your question. I haven't ran into the camera bouncing issue. Other than places I'm kind of expecting it, because like how I mentioned that hamster ball experiment, like the third person view tries to smash you into whatever it's contained in. So that makes the camera bounce all weird and stuff like that. But um, other than that, actually, that was one of the things I noticed, that for the most part, even in certain tight underground spaces, that the camera doesn't jerk as much in this version for me.
that's
Um,
good.
but yeah, so but I haven't ran into that bug yet, though. Little Legion. Maybe I'll keep an eye out though. If it, and I don't know if there's any specific scenarios where that keeps happening, or if it just happens randomly. Um, in your current, oh, like right now it's happening. That's weird. Um, yeah,
Like,
that's
is
that's
it,
pretty.
it's happening in this
That's
experience? Is that what
wow.
he's
Oh,
I don't know what would be causing that in
oh,
this.
yeah. Because yeah, that's it sounds, yeah, it sounds like it has to be some kind of bug, maybe system specific, and that might be worth sending feedback into. And support is actually is curious about these kind of things. Like they do want to hear about these kind of bugs. So
Yeah, don't be shy.
yeah, it might be worth, yeah, it might be worth reporting that, and or try to grab a recording and maybe even like post it in the Discord, like, hey, has anyone noticed this? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye out, but I haven't ran into any issues with the camera really like going crazy on me yet. It's probably not just you, Little Legion. It's probably
Yeah.
like even though it's like it might be a system specific thing. There's probably other systems that are experiencing that same kind of deal.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. If it's happening to you, it's probably not just you
Yeah,
that it would be affecting. So yeah, it's definitely worth letting them know about it. I think taking a video and probably letting them know in Discord, it would probably be the best approach. Just ask if anyone's seeing what's happening, and that'll get somebody's attention, I'm sure. Um, um, as far as, I forget where what the hell we were just, oh, kind of like the Doogie Dash, and then that kind of segued into other ways to build games with leaderboards. So as far as the leaderboard system goes, I know you mentioned something a little bit earlier, that you were either just thinking about it or if you or were you tinkering with anything as far as like being able to track players? I remember somebody asked, I don't know if it was Bjorn, it might have been Bjorn, but is there a way to do races where you could track who finishes in what order? I think that was his
Theoretically,
question.
probably. Just from what I've seen, like with some of the, it might be a little quirky,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's possible. And it'd be a little bit of a roundabout way of doing it, but the fact that like some of these things that we've tested, that we can see the same object and we can interact with the same object. Like those things right there kind of give you a clue into how you would do that. So you'd have these different objects that would represent your different places that are affected by the interaction with the players. Um, and if not just a message system, because the message system should be able to handle that too, when in terms of like a classic counting scenario. And that's one of the things that like in terms of the sandbox in general. I know this is something that not everyone really gets into, but yes, you can count outside the counter. You just have to have it set up, your logic set up to where you have like basically an input, something that registers that input, then registers that as this event, turns this one off, and then now the next event goes on to be registered by this trigger over here. Um,
Mm,
you don't necessarily have to kill them off. Like I know that's kind of one of the techniques, like how Cyber Dragon demonstrated that in one of the early scoreboard techniques, um, where you kill off the switch and then the other ones. You don't necessarily have to kill it off, but you do have to shut off the one that came before. And so if you can do that still, which you can, then you theoretically can count who crosses what when. Um,
right.
yeah, and you theoretically can also make it to where that doesn't come up until like they've actually activated other ones to go like around a track. I mean, so someone can't just go from the start point, go back across, and then come this way, and then now they won.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I know that was an issue in the Raving Rabbits thing at first.
Oh,
One of
really?
those. Yeah, yeah. I guess you
Whoops.
could do that.
Didn't think about
And
that one, huh?
yeah, it's just so yeah, that can definitely happen. And yeah, there is a lot of leeways. Just you just have to know how to kind of make that cascade of logic. I mean, Touche and I were kind of joking one time about like how that Game Maker is almost kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine in itself. It's just like
I
and
remember, yeah.
those, yeah. And for those who don't know that term, it's like where you'd see like in cartoons where like they push the bowling ball pushes over the paint can hits the teeter totter it's that's kind of like how Game Maker works here. It's like you have these different actions that have to cascade down like that, um, which
That
is
is like a good way to explain it.
yeah, it's very similar like that, especially when you can actually use like a simulated gravity in some of these things. I know like Half Dork is a proponent of the gravity random number generator, for instance,
Mm,
um, and things like that. So yeah, it can be very literal in that regard sometimes. So it just depends on the logic of what you're setting up.
right. It's that's like the toughest thing for me is like figuring out how to get from A to well, A to Z, I guess. Like there literally is like a whole alphabet in between in between where you're starting with your logic and where you're trying to go. And
Mhm.
sometimes that gets a little confusing for me. I have found that like drawing it out on like a whiteboard or something,
Yeah,
you can kind of like break down like what what it is that you're trying to do from C to D. It's like what is next in the segment that I'm trying to do. Um,
yeah,
so that's but I feel like and you can give more advice if you have more, but I feel like the best advice for for people that are getting started or still I mean, even if you've been doing it for a while, you're still learning, is to just get in the game maker and just mess around and figure it out as you go. Because at least for me, that's the best way that I learn is just getting in there and getting my hands dirty. Um, what do you think
yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, and definitely one of the things to keep in mind is that try not to get too frustrated at yourself immediately. This is all still very early software, and sometimes it doesn't act like the way it's supposed to. Um, so for some reason, if that message isn't working, tab back out, tab back in, try it again, because sometimes just you have to tab out and tab back in for it to try and get to work again,
Mm-hmm.
for it to work at all. Um,
Or close the
and
whole. I've noticed sometimes even just you have to close the whole program and open it back up, and then all of a sudden it works. Like, oh god
yeah.
damn it! I was trying to troubleshoot that for an hour and should have just closed it.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that one of the advices I give to someone who's starting out, especially like if it looks right, it might be right. It could be Game Maker, or even Vox Edit for that matter. Sometimes it does some weird stuff. And then in terms of like the logic, like yeah, like how you said, you have a process that's from like A to Z. So the trick is to remember to go from A to B. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
so first steps first. You know what I mean? Like how we're talking about like doing like a counter, like how for instance I made a game where it was a 3 point basketball contest, right? And first thing that has to start there is there has to be a ball, and then there has to be a ball that kind of moves towards the basket. Then there has to be a basket,
Mm-hmm.
and then there has to be like then you start kind of seeing what else you have to go. Like just go through that process one by one, step by step, and then you kind of see like okay, then now if the ball goes into the basket, it needs the game maker needs to know that that happened. So now we need a detector, and now are we detecting? We need to detect it just this ball. So now we need to tag these specific balls. So just kind of going one by one. If it gets too overwhelming when you have like the grand scheme of things like kind of staring at you in the face, you just kind of go step by step from what is the player experiencing, and then what individual steps are needed from the development side to accommodate those first actions,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of going from there. And that's going to tell you a lot too in terms of like your playability. Like, is the pacing going to be too slow now, too fast? Just by kind of going through that, and it also give you a lot of feedback in terms of what like say your gaming environment has to be and stuff like this. So this is where like sometimes it's good to do like a heavy amount of planning. Sometimes it's good just to kind of have an outline. And I'd say in the sandbox right now, it's probably better to have an outline than a detailed um, anything because of these quirks of the sandbox. Like your logic on paper might be spot on perfect, but like the
Right.
message system is too laggy or something like that for you to do it the way it was made put on paper. So this is kind of where, like I said, sometimes it is good just to jump in, but having an outline of what's going on is good. And it also kind of depends on like, are you working with yourself or are you working as a team? You know what I mean? Because with the team, you have to be even more documented, more regimented, a little more protocols. When you're by yourself, flow with inspiration. That's probably the best thing to do, really.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do your best work when you're fired up. The path is clear. Like I'm not a believer in someone a believer in the thought that projects have to be completed linearly. Um, it really just go with where you want to. And like even with Vox Edit projects for myself, right? Um, I don't have like I don't have like a rule of how I approach the projects. I have general things like for instance like I tend to rough out I models before I get into texturing, or
Sure.
before I get
Yep.
too into to refining the model. I get the motion working first, but some people want it the other way. um
Mm-hmm.
so it's really what flows the best for you. And at the same time, like when I'm looking at something, and if I'm seeing like a proportion off, and I'm like, oh, that proportion's off, I can tell it's off. If it's like that, then I'll go ahead and change it. Like I don't finish my animation first. I'm like, go ahead and just change it, because usually when you're seeing that stuff, you're telling yourself you already have the answer. When you're like, oh, this
Right.
thing is bugging me. It's too big. It's too small. Well, then
That's the
you
issue that
got it.
you focus on and work on and figure out how to
Mm,
fix. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That I think that's good advice to. I mean, all of that was great advice, per usual. Also, Pickaxe Master said, do one step play and test. If it works, carry on. Always test step by step. If it gets broken, you know where it's happening. And that
Yep.
makes total sense. I feel like I don't do that a lot of the time. And then I'm like, God damn it, why did I do all of that logic? I should have done a little bit and tested it. I've gotten better at that, but that is good advice that you may or may not think about right away when you're first getting started. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and in programming, especially, so for those who have like actually like programming
I was,
experience, and I know that you've been checking it out more. Yeah, you initially you're brought in breaking those things down step by step,
mm-hmm.
and so like, but if you had never been in a programming environment, this isn't quite the logic train, and so yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had thought that and then it flew out of my brain like what usually happens. Um, Goddamn weed. Um, so, oh, did it just happen? No, because what I was saying, I think I did lose it. God damn it. See, I get scatterbrained and distracted.
Oh, good.
But what were you saying? Just remind me. I know it'll come back to me.
Oh, about the programming.
Mm.
The when yeah,
Yes, yes, yes,
program.
yes. Um, it, you have to remember that this is no code, like a no code game maker, but you're still making code happen. So like you have to think about it like you were coding a game, or obviously you don't need to know every step of how to do that, but you have to kind of think about it like you are, because you don't have to write it. You're basically just telling it what to do, and then it writes that code. So like
Yeah.
that's something that I started to realize, especially once I started like diving into learning coding myself. Like now it's like it clicks a little more. It's like, oh duh, like you really do have to kind of tell it step by step, um
Yeah.
what you're trying to get it to accomplish. Otherwise it does what you told it, and then it doesn't know what to do next.
Yeah, it's like, all right, done. What next?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because things don't exist until you create them. It's like we might have a scoreboard asset, but it's not a scoreboard until you tell it to actually count something.
Yep.
So things like that, absolutely, yes. And yeah, then and now this is where I've mentioned too on my stream often enough, where you don't feel like you have to have programming experience, because sometimes now some programmers, and this is what I tell even my friends and associates who program, like Sandbox, you're either going to be like, oh yeah, I get this, this is kind of cool and quick and easy, or if you're a programmer and the other side is like, this is insane, like this is ridiculous, it can't be done, like this is dumb, because there's certain things that exist in a programming environment that don't exist in the sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And one example would be like variables, um,
Sure.
and different runtime commands. Okay, now the sandbox has these, but a lot of times they're combined into your message. So your message is kind of like your variable and your runtime. And there's little things like that some programmers just like, oh, or
Yeah.
there's no direct if then. You have to
Yeah.
kind of create
Right.
this pathway.
Right.
You know?
I could see
Um,
how it would probably be one spectrum or the other. Like you either love it or you hate it if you do have like a
mhm.
programming background, because yeah, like you can't easily get very granular if by just writing the code. You have to kind of be able to think how somebody that doesn't know code would think to do it. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Um,
Especially being in Unity too, like because like I don't have like a vast experience in Unity, but I do have one certification in it, and I understand how to write and create. Like I can create a little game in it too.
okay,
Yes,
cool.
um, and um, and like yeah, it's like you're using Unity, but none of Unity's functions in a sense of like the actual programming. Um, and I'm curious to see what they end up integrating on that level, because they keep telling us we're gonna have some kind of scripting, which I wouldn't doubt that ends up being almost like another drag and drop kind of scenario, because like Game Maker itself, there's I mean Unity itself, and then there's another game maker software that's been around for quite a while called Game Maker. It uses basically kind of like almost like tiles, that you can kind of this represents your entity, right?
Mm.
This entity, there's a little knob there that you now connect to this other thing, which is now your like health counter, stuff like that. So
Okay.
there's a lot of these visual scripting solutions that are coming out, and I wouldn't doubt that that's probably the direction that
That would.
Sandbox goes, because there's already some of these functions available natively in Unity itself.
Mm.
So I can see how that can kind of integrate pretty easily, and in a lot of ways, they're almost doing it already. They're just not putting all the logic out like on a flat surface. It's in a 3D surface. Um, so and it seems kind of um like not as huge of a deal, but it is a little bit different because how you can when it's flat, like you can basically pancake a bunch of stuff. You have no consideration of space. It just goes everywhere. um
Right.
and but we'll see. Like I said, I think that will be interesting. And one of the examples I'd say like of that kind of flat, like a good example of a flat modular non-coding system that has some scripting is actually a Nintendo Switch's Garage Games, I think it's called.
Garage
Um,
games.
it's something like that. Yeah, I believe that's what it was. But yeah, it's a game maker for the Switch, and it has a lot of cool stuff in there. You can make a lot of neat things, and it does this sort of thing, and it does have the typing in. You can put basic commands in some stuff, and it's a great tool. Actually, I think it's a really cool thing for someone who wants to learn coding,
Mm-hmm.
just in general, like the logic behind it. And you can make some really fun stuff in that one too. But I can see Sandbox doing something very similar as that, because it's um, even like how you're switching from like your development. It has a thing where you're switching from like your stage to like that flat
Mm-hmm.
modular coding thing, and I can kind of see how in Sandbox, like we already have sort of that 2D flatness on our right side when we're doing our
Yep.
commands and everything.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. Like I said, from what I've seen, even just like on some of the stuff, like previews of Vox Edit, and some ideas are coming out. The developers have really thought out a lot of the ease of use stuff into the future. So I'm sure that is going to be there's going to be some really cool stuff that's going to happen that's going to make a lot of things easier.
Definitely. And I think how you're explaining that, where you could get more granular with like the whatever you said it way better. But I feel like the making that as like user friendly is the direction that the sandbox would go, because like obviously they probably want to stick as much to the not needing to know code as
Yeah.
possible. um I wonder if eventually they would even open it up further to like, if you know if you know how to code, you could even just put in your own written code in Unity or whatever. Because that'd be interesting. That would basically be like how people have like mods for all kinds of different games. um that I feel
Yeah.
like that would basically be what that is. So
Yeah,
um
which is why I say that I want to doubt that they do like another modular solution for that, because like how you don't necessarily want people injecting like malicious code, and so
yeah, that's true.
if you want to if you limit that through forcing it through these certain allowable command structure, then you
That's
should be
true.
able to mitigate some of that.
I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that's that's very true. If you
Yeah.
could if you could just do anything, it would be a hacker's paradise probably. Or hacker
Well,
slash
I guess you could,
slash rugger.
yeah, I guess we can look at something like Decentraland to kind of say, well, it's not happening too bad there, because like Decentraland pretty much does run on scripting, and so if there's going to be a place that people can try to siphon stuff from in some catastrophic way, it probably would have already happened from there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm sure the sandbox is also watching like what they're doing and seeing how they're able to mitigate that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of very serious hackers and thieves out there, man. And actually, on that note, I was just thinking, actually, Rufu might be a good person for you to get
Yeah.
on behind the avatar here,
Yeah.
because he's a creator, but also has to deal with a lot of the support stuff,
Mm,
and without sharing details, he's talked about some extraordinary links that people go to steal sand from the sandbox.
crazy.
Oh
I bet she
yeah.
has some wild stories.
Oh yeah, yeah. And like how one of my mentors in the science fields used told me, like, the bit of advice that I've kept and I've seen be true is that some people, even though they will want to steal what you will happily give them because they need to feel like they took it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what a lot of us don't think that way.
Right.
We don't and but there's people out there who do, and this is why, honestly, KYC exists. It's
Hmm.
not so the government can come in and take your
Yeah.
stuff or track it. No, it's because they don't want, like, these Russian bots, honestly, because they're
Seriously.
mostly Russian, to do this stuff. I mean,
Oh, I think you froze finally. Not
yeah.
finally, but you did
Oh,
freeze for a second
I did.
Right after your Russian bot comment. So you got that in, and
Oh man,
the bots came and glitched you.
the bots
They're,
came.
they're like, shh, we definitely weren't doing that. Um,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Oh
But
man,
yeah,
that's funny.
that is a good point. Like that is the reason KYC exists. Like obviously, yes, that allows the government to track what you're doing as well, but it's for the game's benefit more than anything, so that things aren't getting botted and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um,
Yep, yep. And that's what, just kind of a side note in that sense, this is one of the things that people mention, like, say, oh, I don't want the man knowing where I'm at. I'm like, dude, blockchain is public.
yeah.
Like, you can write a web scraper with Visual Basic that will track, like, Crafter. Like, I just want to know what's happening in Crafter right now.
Yep.
It could probably be done in like 2 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Nah, it's
oh,
that's the thing that always cracks me up. It's like it's so public. Like anyone can know anything. As like, I mean, obviously, yes, you can remain anonymous to a point, but yeah, like it's so public. Like you people know what you're doing, and and if you don't think that the government will be able to figure out how to track you on the blockchain, you're crazy. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. No, yeah, especially
like it,
especially the state. Yeah, no, DHS knows exactly what you're doing. Yes.
yeah, 100%. So it's just one of those things that I think it's just another. It's just like a hot topic that people can rally around and and have an opinion about, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's how we as humans like to do things. So we just
Well, and a lot of
pile
it's,
onto something.
yeah, a lot of it's manipulation. I mean, because as I think a lot of us here have you can call them onboarding conversations, like we're talking to people about the space, and even when they're genuinely interested, they'll bring up these talking points about, like, oh, what about laundering? What about drugs and guns and this and that? And I'm like, well, number one, that all happens with fiat money first. Okay, that
Right.
it's been happening. It's still happening.
Yeah.
And then number two, like, I tell them, like, I don't know what dollar bills you have in your pocket right now, but I can look on your wallet right now and see how many increments of everything you got too. And I'm like, so how am I going to hide that I just sent this Bitcoin to this drug person? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
there is ways to do it, but then it's kind of like it gets into the same concept. Well, especially on a certain level, right? Because you gotta remember, the man doesn't care that you bought an 8 ball of Coke, man. Like, they don't.
Right.
Okay, they care if you're moving hundreds of kilos. And those hundreds of kilos, it's not like the movies. They don't go like, "Oh, here's your bags of money. Okay, yeah, I'm good. Take my crates of Coke now." No, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
So it's like these things. Like, there's a perception that I think the public has out there, and it is propagated by, like, certain financial institutions that are threatened by cryptocurrency, and nations that feel threatened by it. Because now this is one of the things that I don't talk about too much, but I actually do work. with the former ambassador of Afghanistan on
Okay.
humanitarian aid over there and to the region. And we just got done discussing things with like Polygon, right? Like, Mac
Yeah.
and like how they're like this issue of cash diverting is rampant in aid. And so this is why a lot of different
What's
nonprofits have been approaching Polygon,
what
like,
is
hey, do
what
you have a
is what is cash diverting for those of you that don't know? Because I don't
Okay.
know.
So basically, like, let's say, okay, like America, right? We send a bunch of money over to let's say Afghanistan, to um someplace else, or like how Turkey, they just got hit with some
Yeah.
big earthquake.
Yep.
Okay, there, what ends up happening is on the ground, you essentially have either corruption and or mafia kind of connections that can just physically take the cash. And so they
Mm.
physically just take the cash that's sent over there because they don't
So
they
it
don't bank wire it.
doesn't actually get
Um,
used for what it was intended for.
yeah, yeah, and so the corruption part is huge, and so this is why like Argentina, the why they're really heavy uses into all kinds of crypto. Venezuela has some of the biggest use cases of everything, and now everyone hears about El Salvador,
Mm-hmm.
but these other two nations are actually quite are Venezuela in particular, I guess, has some of the most like lay crypto use because their currency is so bad, it's not stable. There's a lot of corruption, and so these corruption points hate what we're doing. like
Right.
so this is one of the things that it's like, not, I'm not trying to be a downer, not trying to scare anyone, but you gotta remember, like, it's sometimes people are going to get viscerally mad at the fact that you are in cryptocurrency or NFTs because it goes against some of these systems. And
Mm-hmm.
even when it's not like super like blatantly corrupt to a certain degree, like say in the States, yes, we're corrupt as all anything, but like there's like you there like even here, I've had conversations with people who are even kind of in the space a little bit, but when you kind of discuss with them like the ramifications or the fact that you can make a certain amount of money off of it, they get pissed. They get so mad, because like a sub part of their subconscious knows that they're missing out,
Mm-hmm.
and you know um and they don't know what to do about it, and but then a lot of the other side of that is just general, people don't, not everyone has enough time to look into the nuances of cryptocurrency, and so that's probably what I run into more often than not, with just kind of like, random conversations or friends or stuff like that. um but once you kind of break it down for them, they start getting it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So just like a lot of gamers in particular are starting to get it. It's like, hey, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
your Fortnite skins could be gone,
Yeah.
like, just because, but you can't take away your blockchain items.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which, I mean, that I don't know why that doesn't click more. Maybe just because a lot of gamers are just so used to it being the way that it is, that and also, like you were saying, like they've already kind of like missed out on some of it, and so then it makes them salty, and they're like, I don't want to believe in that because because that's something that I missed out on. And but it's not too late. You're not missing out on anything. You didn't miss out on anything. You can still join the club and have a grand old time. So don't be opposed.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
start learning about it. Like that's what I always tell people is like, well, if you at least if you have an opinion about it and you don't know the other side, like just learn about it a little bit and figure out like why there are people that think a different way than how you're thinking, because there's obviously some reason. um is it for you or not for you? I'm not going to tell you that, but that's why you have to research it. Otherwise you're always just going to be on one side of the fence.
Oh yeah.
But if you like it over there, you can stay over there. That's fine too. um, Everyone just do whatever makes you happy, and just don't shit on other people, and we'll all be great. um,
Mhm.
Unfortunately that's not
Well,
always how it goes.
yeah, it's probably not how it's gonna go because, like, I think we can kind of already see this forming a little bit, and mostly with off-chain interest versus on-chain interest. It seems like a lot of on-chain interests tend to see the mutual benefit in the environments, right? But like how we see Microsoft. how they hate the what's going on right now, at least
Mm-hmm.
public.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what like I went down behind the scenes. They already have their integration plans for X amount of decades
Oh,
away, but
yeah,
right
I'm
now,
sure.
um, they're saying this, and because it does go counterpoint to the culture that they've created, and I think that's very obvious in the video gaming genre. And this is where, and like I was saying, a lot of these people they have there's a lot of opinions, but honestly they're ignorant, and so that's kind of what like when someone gets too nasty, like I will just say, you know what, your comments are out of ignorance. Like if you knew better, you would know that you're just you like the they because so many, especially in America and a lot of westernized countries, they've been brought up to have brand loyalty to these major corporations.
Yeah.
Um, and so it goes against the brand loyalty, and this is one of the things that you can, if you look at the more geopolitical picture of what's going on in this space, it's pretty expansive. Like I think everyone kind of glances over the fact that Seb just made inked an agreement with Saudi Arabia.
I saw
Okay,
that. I didn't really look into it, but I just
yeah,
saw that. What?
and yeah, and so how does a video game company make a deal with a country? You know what I mean? Like this, so
Yeah.
this just happened. Um, and there's these other instances of these kind of essentially political moves that are going on that are going counterpoint to this sort of centralized control that's going on in the world. And this is one of the things, like, okay, okay, like I said, every country in the world has its issues, right? um but at the same time, like, this is where you have to look at, like, why is Sandbox aligning with Saudi Arabia and not England?
Mm-hmm.
Why not Germany?
Mm-hmm.
Why Dubai? um, and these get into very far-reaching geopolitical issues that don't aren't easy. They're not easy, and they're some of them aren't nice. And that's one of the things that I think this space has been really cool about, is that most people are fairly evolved and mature in the sandbox in particular, to be able to discuss some of these things without like starting flinging hate at each other, because I think a lot of us see that the corruption that's out there, the some of the other the inequity ultimately that's
Yeah.
rampant, and so that's what brings a lot of us to the crypto space, and that's kind of one of the things that I always compliment my audience on, is like, you guys are all advanced, like, you are beyond normal people, whether you realize it or not.
True.
In intelligence, in perception, and a lot of these things.
Yeah.
um, so so we're pretty fortunate in that sense to have that kind of crowd.
I agree. I love the crowd that we have, and it is very fortunate. Um, and like I would repeat that yeah, like you are above the average for being here, and it is intelligent to be looking into something like this, because um, I mean, just look back at history, like the what drives basically everything forward is technology, and this is the technology of the future. So it only makes sense that you would want to be a part of it if you can, and you can because you're here. So just keep being a part of it, because this is where it's going. Obviously, like, there's always that like asterisk on everything, that it doesn't it not necessarily will be the thing that you first start learning about, but it is here, and the technology that is being utilized is leading to the future, if it isn't already here. So um, it's a great place to be, and it's a great place to be learning. And thank you guys. By the way, I like I said, I always will say I see you guys in chat. I just can't always follow along, because otherwise I lose track of our conversation. Uh, and I do that enough already. So, but yeah, it's great to have you guys here learning along with me, because I feel like I learn so much from every guest that we have on the show, and that's why, especially some guests like we definitely need to have on over and over again, like yourself, so that we can just keep learning, because you guys, you have so much knowledge and a great perspective. So I just, yeah, appreciate you for coming on too. And we don't have to wrap up right this second, but we do need to wrap up here in a little bit. One thing that I also wanted to talk about before we got done was, is the sandbox your number, well, obviously, like, I feel like it's obviously your number one metaverse that you're focused on right now. But is there other metaverses? Maybe that's a better way to put it. Is there other metaverses out there that have caught your eye that you're paying attention to closely? I know you brought up Decentraland a little bit, but I mean, everyone knows about Decentraland, and
Yeah.
um, but like, is there anything else out there that you've seen or that you've been tinkering around with or anything?
Probably the other one that jumps out the most right now would probably be Phantom Galaxies for me,
Mm, yeah.
which is the other Animoca partnered studios thing, and that's a MMORPG that's a space mech fighting kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it's a fun game, just like on surface level, like how I've mentioned. Even if it was just on Steam as a demo, I'd be down to play. I'd be
Definitely.
down to keep playing it.
I played
Um,
the first like little tidbit, but I haven't
yeah,
kept up after that. But the first little
it
like
gets
playthrough
better.
was
Yeah.
fun. Does it get better? I'm
Oh yeah.
sure it gets better.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Like the ground fighting is really fun. And how you can see even in that demo how like there's a clear in-game economy that makes sense to be tokenized.
Mm,
And so that's one of the things that I saw in Phantom Galaxies. They reminded me of Sandbox. Like, okay, these things can all be tokenized. It makes sense. They have value. Phantom Galaxies has that same kind of feel to me. It's like they're not doing lands, but they're doing planets.
mm,
So you have these different planets that you're going to be able to customize and things like that, and then you'll be able to
really?
earn from who visits and uses the planet, and all the planets are going to have different randomized resources that are available on there. Because you know how there's mining and stuff like that in that game too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that aspect of things, and and then yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I mean, it already has like a functioning card game in there. So like there's a lot of different avenues that you can go to create tokens, create an economy in there. um the small asteroids, I want to say, are like $150 or something like that, for which what they call a small planet is essentially. um
Okay.
so
So the entry
the
point's lowish.
yeah, and yeah, and the actual NFTs to play the game, like all of them together, I want to say are like um maybe like $30 or something like that, to kind of have like the full access to everything that's going on right now. But it's the future on that one looks really good, and their token just launched not long ago. It's called Astrofer. It's doing fairly strong,
Okay.
and and uh and yeah, that's really cool. And in terms of actual metaverse crossover potential, because I know that they already done some event items with the sandbox.
Oh,
So there, yeah,
I didn't know
so
that.
there's yeah, Planet Holders got airdropped one asset already, and we're supposed to get more.
Nice.
um yeah, and yeah, really cool stuff. That's a really fun game. There's some others that I think have some potential. Like oh my god, was I'm forgetting the name of it right now. Oh wow, and the interesting thing is you see Animoca at the end of a lot of these
Hmm.
different ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting or
yeah,
not interesting and just obvious, but yeah,
yeah,
it it's
yeah.
they definitely are one that you probably can place some safe bets on.
Well, yeah, and like how I've mentioned, like I guess probably like a couple of years ago now, from what my research, I'm like Animoca is positioning themselves to be like Nintendo of blockchain,
Hmm.
and and they're well on their way, and I do like their approach. I mean, because they're obviously getting key types of games to try to capture more interest. and like how, for instance, like Rev Racing, I think is a good example of um, like a like that's one of the examples I give to like a classic gamer to be like, see, this is a game why you'd want to be on blockchain because it's basically Need for Speed, but you own your car.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that makes sense to people like, oh, it's like, yeah. And especially now that they acquired one of the studios that made Need for Speed,
Oh
it
shit.
shows, yeah,
Nice.
it shows the sincerity in creating like fun games. And that's key. You know what I mean? Because I think like, because to me, honestly, like Bored Apes, I don't see them trying to make fun games. I see them trying to make money.
Yeah.
um you know
Yeah, definitely.
you know
I think they're going to leave the fun games up to other people to build in the
mhm.
other side. Is kind of what it seems like. Is their
Yeah, yeah.
strategy, and they're just trying to figure out how to make as much money as they can, which they're doing very well at that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because it's the money people, and that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
things that like how I've been asked about that, and I said like, yeah, there was. I mean, I saw when Board Apes was coming out, and it's like back then I didn't have the one ETH to put down on either,
Mm,
but like I kind of figured that yeah, it's going to probably do good because you see all these Wall Street people behind it, and so
yep.
yeah, no, they're going to move their money, they're going to know how to move it, and they have enough to get the needle moving.
Yes.
People are going to jump on it. They're going to take all those people who jump on its money, and then they're going to keep doing it. Like they're just going to
It's.
keep
I
doing it
mean,
over and over.
it's the story of the last 3 years in NFTs, or 2 years or whatever it's been. Is just just pump the bags, exit, pump the next bags, exit. Um,
Yeah,
it is what it
and,
is. Like you
and
said,
the
they're
sandbox.
the Wall Street guys. That's what they do. That's what they do. And now they're doing it here.
Yep,
So.
exactly. And Sandbox honestly gave them their first real utility because
Mm-hmm.
before that it was like, oh, go sign our what's it called, signature board. It's like, dude, what is this, like 1996 with a fucking guest book? Like what? Like, oh
uh,
man, like this is ridiculous. It wasn't. Then they're like, oh, we're gonna be in the Sandbox. It's like, yeah, good call.
yeah.
Because right now it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because right now,
Um,
what are you doing? Yeah.
yeah, and but I think that because they have that experience behind them, like they obviously have created a strong team to create good visuals, high level of production value.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll probably be a strong thing, but at the same time, like because it's an ape universe, it's always going to be apes as opposed to the sandbox. It's like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
ape.
Yeah.
And same thing goes for whatever the next metaverse really is. Like I said, I don't think we've seen it yet, but in terms of like the one that's more Ready Player One, like where it's like anything,
Anything.
anything,
Yes.
that hasn't came yet, and when it does, it'll be obvious.
Yeah.
And I know there's some people are trying it, but it's not obvious yet. So
Yeah. I agree with that. It isn't obvious yet, but that is it'll be anything. Whenever something is anything, then you know that that's the one. Um,
yeah, which
and
is why I think that it was really smart for the Sandbox to focus their scale on voxels, because how we see going forward into like a Ready Player One scenario, Wizzy makes sense there.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you could see Wizzy running around in a
Yes.
perfect nerd polygon
a hundred
thing,
percent.
and so that this is the little things like that add to what the strengths of what I'm seeing that the Sandbox really had in play from the get go. So that experience in the game world really kind of shows itself pretty well at this point, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. They they're doing the right things, and they've been doing the right things for a while now. And I think, like you said, like if you kind of look back and see, like they're definitely like, who knows, like if everything has been planned out efficiently, but there's definitely like steps in the process where it's like, oh, I see what you were doing, I just didn't realize it, or
Yeah.
I wasn't a believer of the actual execution of everything. So yeah,
Mm.
it's great to see. Um, Before we wrap things up, because it is about time for me to wrap it up, um, I want to give you the stage. let everyone listening in know where they can find you, follow you, show you love, buy your assets, whatever, whatever you wanna talk about. The stage is yours for one last time, and then we will say goodbye.
All right. Thanks. Thanks again for having me on. It's always fun having our chats here and
Heck
having an
yeah,
audience to bounce ideas off of or hear the feedback from and yeah, like I said, this is so cool being able to now do this in the social hub at the same time.
heck yeah,
Been fantastic. And yeah, you can definitely find me by looking up Shakesbeer on the Sandbox. That's my creator name there. And I'm the Shakespeare on Twitter. And and if you put together like my name Jerry Avalos with Shakespeare, you're almost sure to find me through Google too. So, um, but yeah, there's a lot of cool things that I'm working on with a lot of other studios and partners, and it's really exciting. So yeah, keep an eye out on my Twitter page. And there'll be more creator fund items here. It's going to be really cool. I mean, I'm really excited for everyone that in this space, and especially those who we've been working together with, like yourself, Crafter, on some ideas that we're ready to. We want. It's getting close, man. We're
yeah.
almost here to where the market will be open, lands will be uploadable.
It's
It's
getting
really amazing
it's getting
times.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a wild time to be a part of this. So and I definitely feel the energy kind of coming back with 8 and everything. So just excited to see where things go. And for those of you that don't know, I feel like most of you do, but obviously you could be catching the replay. You can always wake up if you're in the US super early and catch Shakesbeer streaming. What is your typical schedule? I know it's early. That's all
Yeah.
I know. It's like it's too early for me. I don't get up that early.
Yeah, I guess like I kind of consider my official start time around 3 a.m. Pacific Standard. Uh, so
That's
yeah, I think it's like five
yeah,
in the morning for you or something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
a little too early. I get up at 6. I get up at 6, but then I go work out. So
yeah.
maybe I should start working out a little Shakespeare in the background.
We try to keep it interesting because we know we're work radio for some too.
Yeah.
So try to keep things moving and yeah, because I tend to be up through the night. So like I'm like a graveyard shift kind of person. So
Yeah, night owl.
Um, yeah, so that's why it's on that time, and I actually kind of ended up migrating towards 3 because of Half Dork, honestly, because Half Dork comes on a couple hours after that, and
Mhm.
so I figured it was good to kind of like sandwich the Sandbox material together, then leave a gap, shall we say?
Definitely. Definitely.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of how it evolved.
Dope. Well, and people can always, or can they not? Do you allow the replays on Twitch, or do you have replays anywhere?
Yes,
Yeah, you do. So
yes,
you can
yeah.
always go catch the replay later, which just occurred to me. I don't know why. But yeah, so go show him some love and watch some of his stuff, either live or not. But thank you, man, for being on. It's always a blast chatting with you. And I know we'll see your face on here again. And thank you guys. Thank you, chat. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out in the metaverse or just in the chat on Twitch. And if you're catching the replay, make sure you hit that like button and all that fun stuff. Thank you guys so much for being here. And let me know if there's anyone that I should raid. I literally always forget, so I'm going to bring it up right now. And then I'm also going to transition it over to the loading screen. So drop it in the chat, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.